Next up in our SEC preview is the Florida Gators and their head coach, Billy Napier, heading into his third season as head coach. Probably on the hot seat, Dalton. Probably on one of the hottest seats in college football right now. He's had an 11-14 record across his first 2 years at Florida with back-to-back, or excuse me, 6-7 year in his first year, 5-7 this past year. This could be, with how hard their schedule is, and we'll get into it later, this could be their fourth straight losing season. If that happens, that's the first time they've gone 4 straight years with losing seasons since the Great Depression, man. So that is a tough look for Florida right now. There are still reasons to be optimistic, and I think the biggest one is their offense. They have so much talent everywhere on offense. They have a top 10 offensive line in college football, in our opinion. A very good receiving core, headlined by a guy we'll talk about in a little bit. A strong starting running back as well, even though they lost Trevor Etienne. They bring back Montreal Johnson Jr., who's a really good player. And then Graham Mertz, who is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL draft, according to our lead draft analyst, Trevor Sikkema, as well. Just a solid quarterback, kind of like the college Kirk Cousins in a lot of ways, in my opinion, is Graham Mertz. So talent everywhere on offense. The weakness is the other side of the ball. It's their pass defense. They were 111th in coverage grade last year, Dalton, and 62nd in pass rushing grade. So not only that, so they were bad last year. Then you take away Princely Iman-Mielon, who's one of the best pass rushers in college football. He goes to Ole Miss. 2 of their top 3 corners left as well in the transfer portal. They have so much uncertainty heading into 2024, man. Now, they did bring in Cormani McClain, former 5-star corner from Colorado, but he didn't really look too great when he played for Colorado last year. We'll see what he could do as a sophomore, but I have major questions with this pass defense for Florida next year, especially against the schedule they have as well. But tell me a little bit about Graham Mertz, Dalton. Do you think he's a top 5 quarterback in the draft like Trevor Sikkema does, or what do you think about his game heading into another year as a starting quarterback?
I do question the ceiling, especially being as high as something like a QB4, because the thing that makes him good is he gives you a chance to win for sure. He had the 3rd best turnover-worthy play rate in the country. He's got a very conservative nature about him. You see it there, only 3 interceptions all year, but he doesn't take a lot of chances downfield, right? So from a clean pocket, he had the 4th lowest average depth of target and was 119th in passing grade. So even when you're talking about when he's in a clean pocket and, he's certainly a pocket quarterback, there's not a whole lot of rushing that he's going to give you. It's kind of conservative. It's like it's almost playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And then I think about, 15 big-time throws is a mediocre number, but 9 of them went to Ricky Pearsall, who's now on the San Francisco 49ers, won the first round. So you're talking about a guy who he certainly won't kill you. He's not going to be the reason you lose games, but I'm not entirely sure he's going to be the reason you win games either. So it's conservative. It's a bit of like early career Alex Smith-ish, even if you're talking in an NFL comparison, where it's just like he's certainly not going to screw it up. But I don't know how much he can bring you that you consider dynamic. Now, they do have some dynamic players at receiver. And when you look at Eugene Trey Wilson out there, what he did as a freshman last year, a true freshman, alongside Pearsall, this is a guy to build around, right? Led all FBS freshman offensive players with an 81.8 PFF grade. He's a stud. He's a terrific route runner, really nice body control to go up and get the ball downfield. It's just, again, can they call plays and can Mertz kind of unleash it a little bit to use him downfield a little bit more? But if you were going to build a blueprint for the Gators to have a successful season and break that streak you were talking about, it's Graham Mertz, it's Trey Wilson, it's Montreal Johnson. It's really using all of the stars of this offense the way they need to be used.
Eugene Wilson, lowest average at the target in the country last year, 2.8 yards. So he was used a lot as a kind of a offensive weapon in a lot of ways, just giving handoffs and screen passes and all that. I want to see him get more downfield, but he's a really electric player on offense. One of the few bright spots in this defense, I would say, for Florida is their safety, Jordan Castell, who also wasn't even, Eugene Wilson, another freshman for them, and Castell as a freshman as well was fantastic as a true freshman last year. 75.6 grade, was 4th among all safeties in the FBS. Now, that might not sound great. You got to remember, Caleb Downs and Dylan Thieneman were also, for true freshman safeties last year. So it was a really loaded year for true freshman safety. So Castell, in any other year, would be a lot higher on that list, but he had 2 of the best freshman safeties we've seen in a very, very long time ahead of him. 70-plus grades in all 3 facets as a run defender, pass rusher, and in coverage. Had 5 forced incompletions and an interception. I think he's the best sophomore safety in the SEC and one of the best safeties overall in the conference as well. So he's a really, really good player, and I think it just is only getting better, man, which I'm really excited to see what he can do in his true sophomore season. All right, Dalton, big question now. You look at the schedule and how difficult it is. What's the minimum for Billy Napier to probably keep his job next year and Florida to head into year 4 of the Billy Napier era?
Certainly they have to make a bowl game at the very least, and it's a brutal schedule. We're going to find out a lot about them early, even in their out-of-conference playing Miami and UCF, which they could lose to both of those teams. It's entirely possible. Those are 2 good teams. The bowl game is the minimum. Maybe you can chalk it up, but to be honest with you, when you play in the SEC, your schedule's hard every year. There's no let-up. So I just wonder if this thing spirals early a little bit. Let's say they lose to Miami week 1 in the swamp, or they lose to UCF. I believe it's in week 4. Where this is going to go, especially, and I know Graham Mertz is, let's say he's an NFL prospect, right? But if he can't break through that ceiling, do you go to a DJ Lagway behind him, who was, I believe, the #1 quarterback recruit in the country last year? Yep. Do you do that? Do you take the gamble and say we need an upside play, a talent play, because this is with their schedule. They do have talent, especially offensively, but this schedule, their last 5 games, I believe, after their bye week is some combination of Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss,
Texas,
Tennessee, and Florida State, or is it A&M?
It's Georgia. It's at, or it's not at because it's neutral. Georgia, at Texas, home against LSU, home against Ole Miss, and then at Florida State.
I don't even know what to say to that. This is the problem, is the combination of they're in a little bit of flux anyway, and you have that, and not even just that. Look, that to end your season, but again, you're out of conference. Miami and UCF are 2 really good teams. They could lose to both of them. This is a team I worry about a little bit, the Gators, because I just look at, they have a brutal. There's some metrics I've seen that say this is the hardest schedule in the country by far. No one's even close, and I can see why. 10, they may be underdogs in at least 8 of their games, at least 8, if not 9 of them.
The only one I could say I'm they're gonna win that game. They are home against Samford, and they're at Mississippi State. Those are the only 2, because otherwise you got Miami, you got A&M, you got UCF, you're at Tennessee, you're home against Florida, and you're home against Kentucky, and then you got that last 5 games we just talked about as well. I'm not saying they are going to go 2-10. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they are going to win a few games because I like their offense. But there's only 2 games where I'm like, oh yeah, they'll win that game. Everything else is no, they could lose that game, or they should lose that game. So
yeah,
tough.
It's going to be tough. I think a bowl game is the minimum for them to be okay, we can breathe and we can move into a Lagway era and really try to push this thing to the future. But if they go 4-8 or 5-7 again, it's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, it really is, and it sucks for Napier, man, because it's man, that schedule, going 5-7 should be that's a great year with that schedule. It's that's what you should expect for them. But yeah, I think it really is, and the questionable defense, the brutal schedule. I think that they are on the fringe of making a bowl game right now, and they're going to need to. I think for Billy Napier to keep his job, but that offense I think will be good enough to compete at the top of the SEC. It's just the major questions defensively, and the fact that they're playing so many elite teams, man. That's going to be ultimately what could be Billy Napier's undoing at Florida. But let us know in the comments below what you think about Florida. And we're doing this for every single one of the 70 Power 5 teams. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for more videos like these previewing the 2024 season.